He utterly hated Jerry Seinfeld, and now we finally know why. Tonight Show legend Johnny Carson, the undisputed king of late-night television for 3 decades, was known for his charm, wit, and genuine appreciation for talented comedians. From Robin Williams to Joan Rivers, Carson launched countless careers with just a nod and an invitation to the couch. But there was one comedian Carson never embraced despite his massive success: Jerry Seinfeld. In the golden age of television, Carson's approval meant everything. A thumbs up from Johnny could transform an unknown comic into a household name overnight. But behind the scenes of the entertainment industry's most powerful dynasty, Carson harbored a deep, unspoken disdain for the man who would become television's highest-paid comedian. While millions of Americans welcomed Seinfeld into their living rooms every Thursday night, the man who built late-night television couldn't stand him. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of Hollywood's most fascinating unspoken feuds, the Cold War between television's most powerful kingmaker and the comedian who claimed to make a show about nothing. What could have possibly turned Carson against one of comedy's biggest stars? Was it personal, professional, or something darker altogether? The answer reveals volumes about both men and about how the entertainment world really works when the cameras stop rolling. By the time you finish watching this video, you'll understand why the man who made countless comedians' careers never gave Seinfeld his blessing, and why that matters more than you might think. Stay with me because the truth behind this Hollywood Cold War is more shocking than anything you've heard before. In 1993, at the absolute peak of his fame, Jerry Seinfeld dominated Thursday nights. Critics hailed him as a comedic genius, and at 38 years old, he had more power in Hollywood than most performers could ever dream of. That's when he met 17-year-old Shoshana Lonstein in Central Park, a student at the prestigious Dalton School. What began as a chance encounter quickly blossomed into a relationship that raised eyebrows across America. While Seinfeld insisted they were just friends until Shoshana's 18th birthday, the two were frequently photographed together in intimate settings. Despite the 21-year age gap, she couldn't even legally drink while he approached 40. Seinfeld seemed oblivious to the public's discomfort. For Johnny Carson, this was beyond the pale. A television insider who worked on The Tonight Show during its final years revealed, Johnny was old school about certain things, and this crossed a line for him. He had built his career on being the kind of entertainer parents trusted, one that represented a certain class. To him, a middle-aged man dating a high schooler wasn't just inappropriate, it was tacky. Carson, then in his late 60s and in the twilight of his career, reportedly refused to even mention Seinfeld's relationship on air. When a monologue joke referencing the couple bombed with the audience, Carson quietly directed his writers to remove any further references to Seinfeld's personal life. Johnny tolerated a lot, recalled a former NBC executive, but a 38-year-old dating a teenager wasn't one of them. Even mainstream publications couldn't ignore the unsettling nature of the relationship. People magazine ran a cover story titled The Graduate, while Newsweek questioned why someone at Seinfeld's level of success and maturity would pursue someone so young. Though Seinfeld and Lonstein eventually split after 4 years together, the damage to his reputation in certain circles was already done. And in Johnny Carson's world, a world that still valued discretion, class, and moral standard, Seinfeld had revealed himself as something less than a gentleman. Years later, when asked about Seinfeld in a rare post-retirement interview, Carson simply said, "Some comedians understand that with great success comes great responsibility. Others just understand success." The subtext was impossible to miss. Behind Seinfeld's familiar smirk and his famous, "What's the deal with?" catchphrase was reportedly a man very different from the one America adored. While his observational comedy connected with millions, those who worked with him described someone clinical, detached, and often dismissive of others. Carson, by contrast, was known for his genuine appreciation of the people around him. Despite his massive fame, he learned the names of stagehands, asked about their families, and remained grounded. Johnny never forgot that television was a collaborative medium, said a longtime Tonight Show producer. He knew his success depended on hundreds of people doing their jobs well. Jerry, on the other hand, acted like he was doing everyone a favor just by showing up. When Seinfeld appeared on The Tonight Show, his professionalism was undeniable, always on time, always prepared, but he rarely engaged with staff, seldom expressed gratitude, and maintained an invisible wall between himself and others. Carson took notice. For a man who had hosted thousands of celebrities over his 30-year tenure, Seinfeld's behavior stood out, not for being rude, but for lacking warmth and humility. Johnny liked comedians who had layers, explained a former Tonight Show writer. He appreciated sharp wit, but he also valued authenticity and the ability to laugh at yourself. Jerry had the wit, but the rest, not so much. This difference became apparent during a comedy roundtable when Seinfeld casually dismissed other comedians, including Carson favorites like David Letterman and Jay Leno, for trying too hard to connect with audiences. While the audience laughed at Seinfeld's snark, those in the green room noticed Carson's tight smile. The audience laughed, but the green room stayed silent, one witness recalled. Everyone knew Johnny hated that kind of talk. For Carson, who believed talent should speak for itself, self-congratulation and dismissing peers were signs of insecurity rather than confidence. Carson had survived in television for 3 decades without making enemies, while Seinfeld's sharp-edged attitude alienated many. The mark of a truly great comedian, Carson once told a friend, is that other comedians want to be around them. Gary Shandling later remarked, with Jerry, that wasn't always the case. Carson valued modesty. Seinfeld flaunted wealth. Though Carson amassed a fortune during his broadcasting career, he lived modestly by Hollywood standards. His generosity was quiet, his life understated. Johnny drove nice cars and had beautiful homes, said his producer Peter Lost Sally, but he never talked about them. He found that kind of thing distasteful. Seinfeld, by contrast, built much of his post-sitcom identity around his wealth. His legendary collection of over 100 Porsches, private jets, and $100 million annual syndication income became part of his brand. He even built entire shows like Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee around his car collection. To Carson, who grew up during the Depression, flaunting wealth was the quickest way to lose touch with an audience. You don't get funnier when your garage gets bigger, Carson once said. Comedy comes from living a normal life. To him, Seinfeld's materialism symbolized a generational shift, where fame was no longer about connection but curation. The audience can smell it when you lose touch with real life, he warned. And when that happens, you stop being funny. You're just rich.